Okay, so this is your answers for review for test number 2. So number 1 and 2, it says to write each expression in exponential form. That means using a fractional exponent. So remember, fractional exponents are power over the root. So remember the rule, when you have x to the a over b power, that's equivalent to the b root of x to the a. Remember, this is, the numerator is the power, and the denominator is the root, power over the root. Okay, so number 1, we have the 6th root of 4x to the 3rd raised to the 7th power. Now notice, 4x to the 3rd, this whole thing is in parentheses, so we're going to keep it in parentheses when we take it out of the radical form. So let's put it in parentheses outside the radical form. So it's going to be 4x to the 3rd, close the parentheses. Now, remember, it's power over the root. So my power is 7, and my root is 6. It's the 6th root. So it's 4x to the 3rd in parentheses raised to the 7/6 power. All right, number 2. So we have, remember that when you have a root that has no number in the index, remember we automatically in math assume that that is actually a 2 in there, right? It's a square root. So notice there are no parentheses underneath the radical, so that means each one underneath this radical is going to have its own exponent. So 6 has no exponent written, so remember, when you have a number or a variable and there's no number written, that's really a 1 in there. It's really a 1. All right, so it's going to be 6, remember, power over root. The power for 6 is 1, the root is 2. And then we have x, which has a power of 5, and the root is 2. So it's 6 to the 1/2, x to the 5 over 2 power. All right, number 3 and 4, we're going to go the other way. So we're going to go from exponential form, we're going to go into the radical form. So remember, we have power over the root. Top number is power, bottom number is root. Okay, so I have x, put in your root there. So now what root do I want? I want the 4th root, that's the bottom number. Remember, it goes inside the check mark, it's tiny. And then what power do we want? What's the top number of the fraction? 5. So it's the 4th root of x to the 5th power. All right, number 4, notice 2k is in parentheses, so when I put it underneath the square root, I'm going to put it in parentheses. Okay, my root is 4, that's the bottom number. And my power is 3, so 3 will go on the outside, okay? And just so you know, this could be written like this. You could have it written like this, and then like the 3 is on the outside, like this. That's the same thing, okay? All right, number 5, we are simplifying. So notice number 5, there's no number inside the check, so that means that this is a square root, and number 6 is a square root. All right, so notice I have a 4 on the outside to start off with, number 5, so bring down the 4. I'm going to put my perfect squares on the left and my non-perfect squares on the right. I'm just going to move that 4 over. Okay, so this 4 here is from the beginning. Okay. All right, what perfect square goes into 96? That is 16 times 6 is 96. Remember, variables, if you have an even exponent, it's a perfect square. So x to the 4th is a perfect square, so I'm going to put it on the left side, so x to the 4th. Y to the 7th, so go down 1, so that'd be y to the 6th. 6 and y, right? Y to the 6th times y is y to the 7th. All right, bring down the 4 again. So I have 4 times, the square root of 16 is 4. The square root of x squared is x. Remember, you do half the exponent. Oh, I'm sorry, that's x to the 4th, so that would be x squared. The square root of y to the 6th is y to the 3rd. So I'm just going to clean this up here. It's going to be 16x squared y to the 3rd. The square root of 6y. Okay, number 6. All right, so I'm going to bring down the 5 first. Set up my square roots here. What perfect square goes into 175? That's 25 times 7. A to the 5th that would be 8 to the 4th times A. B is not a perfect square, and there's no perfect square that goes into B, so I put it on the right side. The square, so bring down the 5. The square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of A to the 4th is A squared. Clean this up. 25 A squared, the square root of 7AB. All right, let's take a look at number 7. All right, so notice now number 7, we're dealing with a cube root. Okay, so let's write down some perfect cubes, because I bet we forgot them. So 1 is a perfect cube, 8, 2 times 2 times 2, 27, 3 times 3 times 3, 64, 4 times 4 times 4, 125, okay, 216, that's 6 times 6 times 6. All right, so let's find a perfect cube that divides into, notice I'm putting the little 3 inside the check mark. A perfect cube goes into 108. That is 27 times 4. Now remember, perfect cubes with x's and y's or a's and b's have to have an exponent multiple of 3. So if I have an x to the 4th, I have to use x to the 3rd and x. And then my other one is y to the 7th, so I'm going to use y to the 6th times y. All right, the cube root of 27 is 3. The cube root of x to the 3rd, remember, take the exponent, divide by 3, so that's just x. Y to the 6th, divided by 3, we get y squared. And then the cube root of 4xy. All right, so let's take a look at 8. Okay, so let's start breaking it down. What perfect cube goes into 375? That's 125 times 3. And then we have m to the 8th, not a perfect cube because the exponent's not multiple of 3. So go down from 8. So I have 7 is next, but that's not a multiple of 3, so it has to be m to the 6th times m squared. N to the 3rd is a perfect cube, so we put it on the left. And the reason why is because the exponent is multiple of 3. The cube root of 125 is 5. The cube root of m to the 6th, we'll take 6 and divide by 3. That's 2, so it's m squared. And the cube root of n to the 3rd is n. Just take 3, divide by 3, and we get 1. And then we have the cube root of 3m squared. Okay, number 9. All right, we're performing the indicated operation. So remember, in order to add and subtract radicals, the number underneath the radical, that's called the radicand, they have to be the same. Okay, so let's start with the square root of 45. So I'm going to bring down the 2 to start off. What perfect square goes into 45? 9 times 5. So it's 2 times 3, the square root of 5, which is 6, the square root of 5. So this is nice. We don't need to change this. This is plus 2, the square root of 5. All right, next bring down the negative 3. So that's 100 times 5. 100 is the perfect square. So it's negative 3 times 10, so it's negative 30, the square root of 5. Now you just add and subtract the coefficients. You're going to keep the square root of 5 in your answer. So 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 minus 30 is negative 22. So it'll be negative 22, the square root of 5. Okay, number 10, same thing. We're going to have to simplify. So let's start with the square root of 18. There's a negative on the outside. So what perfect square goes into 18? 9. And the square root of 2. Bring down the negative. The square root of 9 is 3, so it's negative 3, the square root of 2. This is nice. This is already simplified. Minus 2, the square root of 2. Next, bring down the negative 3. What perfect square goes into 8? That would be 4 and 2. The square root of 4 is 2, so we have negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, the square root of 2. Again, my radicand is going to stay the same, so I will have the square root of 2. Okay, and then we're going to add the coefficients. So we have negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5, minus 6 is negative 11. So it'd be negative 11, the square root of 2. Okay, so let's turn the page. Okay, so here we're multiplying. So remember, when we multiply coefficients, we multiply radicals. Remember, if you have a radical and there's no number in front, there's really a 1. So we have 5, the outside number. 5 times 1 is 5. The square root of 10 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 50. And then we have 5, the square root of 10 times negative 5 is negative 25, the square root of 10. No radicals to multiply, so we just leave the square root of 10. All right, so we can simplify the square root of 50. So that's the square root of 25 times the square root of 2. The square root of 25 is 5, so I have 5 times 5 is 25. The square root of 2 minus 25, the square root of 10. We cannot simplify anymore, and we can't add because we don't have the same radicands. I have the square root of 2, square root of 10, so we can't do anything with this. Okay, number 12, we're going to actually double distribute because I see 2 binomials. All right, so you ready? Let's get going. So we have 2 the square root of 10 times negative 4 is negative 8 the square root of 10. 2 the square root of 10 times negative the square root of 10 is negative 2 the square root of 100. Square root of 10 times the square root of 10. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. 6 times negative the square root of 10 is negative 6 the square root of 10. All right, so these two here we can add because they're like terms. They both have the square root of 10. So negative 8 minus 6 is negative 14 the square root of 10. This right here, we have minus 2 times, right, the square root of 100 is 10, and then we have minus 24. So it's negative 14, the square root of 10, minus 20, minus 24. So negative 20 minus 24, so it's going to be negative 44 minus 14, the square root of 10. Okay, so let's take a look at 13. Okay, 13, we are rationalizing the denominator, which means that you have to get the denominator to be a number that's not a radical. So when it's a monomial, like number 13, all you have to do is multiply by whatever monomial you have in the denominator. So you're going to multiply by the square root of 12, top and bottom. So the square root of 3 times the square root of 12 is the square root of 36. The square root of 12 times the square root of 12 is the square root of 144. Now, the square root of 36 is 6, and the square root of 144 is 12, so this is 1/2. All right, let's take a look at 14. Again, even though it's 2 the square root of 6, this is a monomial because there's no plus or minus in between the 2 and the square root of 6. So you just multiply by the square root of 6. Now, the numerator is a binomial, so you're going to have to make sure you distribute the square root of 6. So the square root of 6 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 18. And the square root of 6 times negative 9 is negative 9, the square root of 6. Over 2 times the square root of 36, because 6 times 6 is 36. All right, so we need to simplify. So the square root of 18 simplifies and becomes the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. The square root of 9 is 3, so it would be 3 the square root of 2. So it would be 3 the square root of 2 minus 9 the square root of 6 over, well, this is 2 times 6, which is 12. So remember, we can reduce this. So this is 3 the square root of 2 over 12 minus 9 the square root of 6 over 12. And then we can reduce. This becomes 1 and 4. So it's the square root of 2 over 4 minus, and then this is 3 and 4, the square root of 6 over 4. And then obviously this can be written as the square root of 2 minus the square root of 6 all over 4, just by subtracting the tops, keeping the bottom when you add and subtract fractions. Okay, number 15, we're factoring completely. So remember, we look for GCF first. And for number 15, there is a GCF. The GCF is 2. So we have 25p to the 4th minus 16. Remember, I got that by dividing both of my terms by 2. And then I notice I have dots. So So bring down the 2. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 25p to the 4th is 5p squared. Okay, number 16. Okay, so I see still there's a GCF. The GCF is 5 times n squared minus 8n plus 15. All right, now I'm going to use master product. So I multiply the first times the last. I get positive 15n squared. Now you say to yourself, what multiplies to 15 adds to 8. That is 5 and 3. So it's 5, 3, and n, 5n and 3n. They're going to get the same signs. That's the only way to multiply and get a positive 15 is to have the same signs. But when we add, we have to get a negative 8. So it has to be negative 3 and negative 5. Bring down the n squared and bring down the 15. Now we're going to factor by grouping. In the first group, the GCF is n, so it's n minus 5. Notice there's a minus here. Bring down the negative. GCF would be negative 3 then times n minus 5. So the factors are n minus 3 times n minus 5, and then don't forget to bring down the 5 there. Okay, number 17. Oh, so number 17, I see 4 terms, so I'm going to think grouping right away. So the GCF of the first group is x squared times 2x minus 5. I see a negative in there, so I bring out the negative. GCF is negative 4 then. And then I get 2x minus 5. So my factors are x squared minus 4 times 2x minus 5. And when I wrote this, I noticed that this is dots. So I have x plus 2, x minus 2, and 2x minus 5. Okay, number 18. Okay, trinomial master product. So I multiply the first times the last. So I get negative 20m squared. Remember, there's a 1 in front. So what multiplies to 20 minuses to 1. So hopefully you got 5m and 4m. They have to multiply to negative 20. That means they have to be different signs. But when we add them, they have to give you positive 1. So it's going to be positive 5 and negative 4. Bring down the minus 20. Bring down the m squared. Now we use grouping. The GCF of the first group is m. Then we get m plus 5. Minus in there, so bring down the negative. GCF is negative 4, m plus 5. So my factors are m minus 4 and m plus 5. Okay, number 19 through 21, we are performing the indicated operation. All right, so it says find the sum. Sum means to add them, so we're going to add these together. All right, so look for like terms. I'm going to combine 3/4. So use the fraction key on your calculator. 3/4 n to the 4th plus 6n to the 4th. So use the fraction key on your calculator. It's 3 over 4 n to the 4th. 1/5 n squared minus, watch the sign, minus 7n fifths n squared, which comes out to be negative 6/5 n squared. And then we have 1/4 n and 4/3 n. Use the calculator, use the fraction key. We're adding them together and we get 19 over 12n. Okay, so number 20 says to find the difference. Difference means to subtract. So find the difference of this polynomial and this polynomial. So we are subtracting these. All right, so remember when we subtract, we distribute the negative. So the first parentheses is going to stay the same. So it's 4x to the 3rd minus 5 plus 8x. Now distributing the negative, I get negative 2 plus x cubed plus 2x. And now I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 4x to the third plus 1x to the third is 5x to the third. 8x plus 2x is 10x. And negative 5 minus 2 is negative 7. Okay, so let's flip it over and continue. Okay, number 21, we are finding the quotient. Quotient means to divide. Okay, so I'm going to separate the numerator and put each one over the denominator. So it's going to be 32x to the fifth divided by 8x to the third minus 40x to the fourth divided by 8x to the third plus 24x to the third, 8x to the third. Now divide each piece. 32 divided by 8 is 4. X to the fifth divided by x to the third is x squared. Remember, when you divide, subtract the exponents. Negative 40 divided by 8 is negative 5. X to the fourth divided by x to the third is x. Positive 24 divided by 8 is positive 3. And x to the third and x to the third divide by each other, since it's the same thing, reduces to just 1. So that would be my final answer. All right, number 22. Sandra has a rectangular garden with a length of x minus 2 and a width of x squared minus 4x plus 2. Sandra wants to cover the area with dirt. Express the area of her garden as a polynomial. Find the area of a garden if the length is 6 feet. All right, so let's draw a picture of the rectangle. All right, it says the length is x plus 2. And the width is x squared minus 4x plus 2. So we want to find the area of the rectangle first. Remember, area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. So I have to multiply the length and the width. So it's a trinomial times a binomial. So it's x squared minus 4x plus 2 times x plus 2. And we're going to distribute. So 2 times 2 is 4, positive 4. Put the sign down. 2 times negative 4x is negative 8x. Watch the sign. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. And that's positive 2x squared. Put the sign down. Now we're going to work with the x. X times 2 is positive 2x. Put it right underneath the negative 8x. X times negative 4x is negative 4x squared. Watch the sign. Put it right underneath the other x squared. X times x to the second is x to the third. Now I add them straight down. X to the third. 2x squared minus 4x squared is negative 2x squared. Negative 8x plus 2x is negative 6x, and then I have plus 4, and this is your area as a polynomial. Now it says find the area if her length is 6. All right, so this side here, it says here length is equal to x plus 2. So that means x plus 2 has to equal 6. It doesn't mean x is 6. The length is 6. So that means x plus 2 has to equal 6. Minus 2. So now we know x is equal to 4. Now you're going to plug 4 in. So it's 4 to the third minus 2 times 4 squared minus 6 times 4 plus 4. That you just plug in your calculator all at one time. And you get the area is 12 square feet. Okay, number 23. Sal bought a new television. The length of the television is represented by x minus 7, and the width is x squared plus 3x minus 1. Express the perimeter of Sal's television as a polynomial. Find the perimeter if the length is 15 inches. Okay, so let's see here. Here's our television. Here's the television Sal bought. It says the length is x minus 7. The width is x squared plus 3x minus 1. First one says to find the perimeter. So remember, perimeter means to add up all the sides. So it is a rectangle. So remember, opposite sides are congruent. Opposite sides are equal. So if one side is x minus 7, the other side is x minus 7. And if the width is x squared plus 3x minus 1, so is the other side. So now we're going to add up all the sides to find the perimeter. So P equals, so start adding up the sides, x minus 7 plus x minus 7. Those are those two sides here. Now we're going to do these two sides here. Plus x squared plus 3x minus 1 plus x squared plus 3x minus 1. And now we're going to combine like terms. All right, so we have P equals, sorry, I'll do green here. P equals, look for the like terms. I'm going to start with the squares. X squared plus x squared is 2x squared. X plus x is 2x, plus 3x is 5x, plus 3x is 8x. Negative 7 minus 7 is negative 14. Minus 1 is negative 15. Minus 1 is negative 16. Okay, that's part A. That's the perimeter expressed as a polynomial. Now it says the length is 15 inches. So this represents my length. So that has to equal 15. Add 7. Add 7 to both sides to figure out what x is. So we could plug x into the perimeter. 15 plus 7 is 22. So now I know x is 22. So I can plug x is 22 in for all these x's here and figure out what the perimeter is. P equals 2 times 22 squared plus 8 times 22 minus 16. So plug that in to your calculator and we get 1,128 inches. Okay, so that's it, and happy studying, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.